Welcome to the Friendly City Books podcast. I am Randi, and with me today we have Aimee Nezhukumatathil. I'm so excited to have Aimee visiting with us. Thank you for coming and talking to us today.
Thank you. I am so happy to be here. I can't wait to be visiting you all in person. I've been admiring Friendly City, just like from Instagram and social media. Y'all have some of the cutest posts from the bookstore, so I can't wait to be there next month.
Oh, yes. We're so excited to host Aimee on May 11th in Columbus, Mississippi. I think we're going to be having it downtown at the courthouse.
Yes.
So it's going to be so exciting.
Mm-hmm.
But Aimee is the author of the New York Times bestselling illustrated collection of nature essays, World of Wonders, in praise of fireflies, whale sharks, and other astonishments, which was chosen as Barnes & Noble's Book of the Year. She has also written 4 poetry collections, one of which I have, Oceanic. So cute. I love the octopus on the cover.
Actually, it's a starfish.
Is it a starfish?
Yeah, but it's meant to be ambiguous. Like
I love that.
Nobody gets to see a starfish falling from the side,
right? Oh,
and so but it's meant to be ambiguous. Yeah, great.
I love it. But we're here today to talk about your newest book, Bite by Bite, Nourishments and Jamborees, another illustrated essay collection that's celebrating food this time, which is going to be so exciting.
Thank you. I cannot wait. It's like, this is the little calm before the storm. Yeah.
Definitely. It comes out on April 30th, and I'm really excited for you all to read it. Aimee was so nice to send me a pre-release copy, and I have just devoured it. It is so good. I am a person who considers myself a recovering picky eater. I have a list of all of the foods that I'm still hesitant, anxious, and don't want to eat. And so reading some of these was definitely inspiration to get out and try even more food.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, and I'm also a amateur baker who once had a fear of ovens. So
oh my goodness.
Hearing you talk about your experiences baking different foods and your mom's baking was really inspirational for me to try to branch out and challenge myself. But I did challenge myself to create a bake inspired by Bite for the Edible Book Festival in Columbus. I made a stick of butter.
By the way, let me just pause there. And that is the greatest kind of celebration, either edible book contest or edible book festival.
It is my favorite day of the year. I absolutely love it. Yes. And we have it every year at the Columbus Lowndes Public Library. And I've entered, what are some other things I've entered? Last year I did the Priory of the Orange Tree. I made an orange cake, with the oranges on top and a dragon coming out of it, which was pretty intense. But the butter cake was very cute, very great. But I really loved both World of Wonders and Bite by Bite. Actually, when I finished World of Wonders, I was so emotionally overcome with how great it was that I sent you a long Instagram rant through tears.
It was definitely memorable, and and I think that, but I also think that's how I became instant friends with you. You know what I mean? Like, it was just I so appreciated how vulnerable it was, and just no holds back in terms of it was just a writer's dream, basically.
All I could do was gush because of the way that you write about the South, the way you write about family, moving. So you were so vulnerable. That's one of the many topics we're going to cover in the podcast today, is how amazingly vulnerable you are in your writing, and just how much I obviously many people, not just me, respond to that. And I'm so happy to see you be so successful and still take the time to talk to Little Friendly City.
Oh my goodness, are you kidding me? I never forget. And I never will. That's anybody who knows me for 2 minutes knows that's not, I've never been that kind of schmoozy writer. And absolutely, and especially a Mississippi bookstore, please, I'm never going to turn that down.
Well, I think that this book, Bite by Bite, is definitely another reminder to share your joy and zest for life, and literally and figuratively. Uh, what I love about both of these books is that each chapter is its own little piece, its own little topic. And
Mm.
this book covers so many delicious foods. We've got vanilla, black pepper, flan, risotto, mango. Literally, I like left my house and went and bought a mango when I read the
Oh,
mango chapter.
good.
So I was
Yeah.
wondering what made you decide on food as your next topic?
That's such a good question. I think a few of the essays were started, pre-pandemic, but the majority of it was written after. And I think after a time when we were separated from so many of our loved ones and our family, and our family, as if that's something separate. When we were separated from so many of our loved ones and friends, I just wanted to get back to I wanted to focus on what has nourished us, even through the thick and thin. It's one thing to say, "Hey, I love things when things are going well," but what are the things that nourish you during the pandemic? What are the things that keep you grounded? What are the things that you can call back in your memory that maybe aren't here anymore? But also, I wanted to ask, kind of, what is it that can bring us back together?
Yeah,
And for me, I don't want to speak for anybody, but for me, and through this book, I wanted to showcase how that is food.
for sure. I definitely think that Dalgona coffee brought us all together during the pandemic. We were shaking that
Exactly.
jar with ice,
Exactly. Yep. Yep.
sourdough starters.
That's
Everybody
right.
had one. But how did you narrow it down? Did you have like a long list of foods that you wanted to get to?
Yeah, I had kind of a wish list, but it wasn't necessarily a wish list of food. That's what's so interesting. I'd say 90% of the table of contents that you have, I had about 50. This is like 41 chapters. Um, my wish list was not just of food. I'd say 90% of it was like events or scenes, really. So
Mm-hmm.
10% of them they were kind of the same thing. Like the first time I ever encountered something called a mangosteen was in Hawaii. So the essay is about that moment, but also about the fruit itself. Everything
Yeah,
else was kind of based on so in almost in real time you could almost see me experiencing it at the same time most people experience it, so I would say 90% of the times those started with a scene. Like I thought of I missed my parents so much during the pandemic, in particular my mom, although it was nothing against my dad. My mom is 10 years older, and I was always just constantly worried about her. And thinking about the last time I truly like worried about her, she had an extended contract at hospital in a different state from where I
right.
lived in fifth grade, and that was the last time I had missed her so much. So I didn't sit down, and the subject was the food subject was a gyro sandwich.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like I wrote down gyro sandwich first and then was like, what can I say about gyros? It
Right.
was more of like, this is when so again, it's a list, it's bite by bite, but really it's kind of like love by love, like what are those
Yeah,
moments of love and cherishing and like belonging? I really just wanted to focus on those moments of, again, it's the subtitle, but nourishment and jamborees, parties
definitely.
and places where I felt like not necessarily at home, but nourished.
I think that and what is so amazing about your writing is it pulls those out of the reader as well. Because I was thinking of the time that my mom drove to every store between Senatobia and Memphis to find a papaya the day
Ah,
before I had to take papaya to school, and your son needed the
oh,
pineapple in the
really?
snowstorm. And, I think that it just makes you think about all of the times that you've been really nourished and loved and cared for. And just responded so well to that. Um,
Oh, good. That makes me so happy
yeah.
because actually, I mean, you demonstrated it perfectly just with what you said. My hope is that when we share these vulnerabilities and share these joys, it becomes contagious. Like,
Mhm.
hey, this is when I felt nourished, or this is when one of my parents did something for me, or this is what I felt like when I was in my 20s and had a group of the chosen friends and single. You can have that feeling and also like spending time with your kids. And
Right. Yeah.
it doesn't have to be either or. It doesn't have to be like, oh, my kids are dragging me down. I wish I was single again in my 20s.
Right.
It could be both. Like you had a great time in your 20s and also you know, there's no place I'd rather be nobody I'd like to hang out with more than my family, you know.
Definitely.
And
I
you don't
think that
really see that in books.
No, and the ability to look at your whole life and be so grateful for all of the different times and different seasons that you go through, just like
Yes.
talking about the seasons of the fruit. You know, we've got different
Yeah.
seasons for everything. And you can like strawberries, but it might not be time to eat them, you know? So,
Exactly. And I always feel like I need to say this. It's not like I am absolutely not saying this, and anybody who knows me knows this is true, but my family is far from perfect. And it's not like we don't get on each other's nerves for sure. But
mhm.
I just was thinking of young folks in particular. What does it mean when anytime they read a book about marriage, it's like some guy's cheating, or some guy can't handle a woman's success, or some guy is
Right,
just
right.
like, just mean and bitter. I very purposely, and he is a very private person. I very purposely put my husband throughout here, not as a way to pat myself on the back or pat him on the back necessarily, but I wanted to showcase there's a different. You don't have to have my life. There's just other possibilities than what mainstream literature gives us all the time. You
Right.
know.
I loved the talk about your partnership, that you guys were partners in that.
Yes, it's
I
very
love
much a partnership.
the passage that you had that's like, "My husband knows what size socks our kids wear and when we
Yes.
last went to the dentist." I was like, "Yes, that is good. Yay."
Yeah, and also
That
I'm thinking of boys too.
Yes.
When all they get exposed to is like, look at all these horrible dads and like helpless dads and dads that are not present or whatever. It's like, what does
Right.
that tell them? Like I wanted to just give different possibilities. Again, not that
Mhm.
anyone needs to copy me by any means, but just to say, hey, it's possible to be a decent dad. It's possible to be like a mom who appreciates her kids and
Yes.
appreciates her husband and appreciates her parents and
Right.
appreciates singlehood, you know?
Yes. I think it's just, overwhelming gratitude, right,
Yeah, yeah,
of your
absolutely.
life.
Absolutely.
And I think that, you can just tell, you know, it hasn't come without, crying nights or
Absolutely.
hardships.
Mhm.
You're very vulnerable about all of that in the book as well. I
Absolutely.
think the risotto chapter, it resonated a lot with me because I'm sort of in an interstitial space of, like, what's gonna come next.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
being able to think back on like, well, I had really great risotto and I didn't know that everything was going to change, but it was just about around the corner and I
Yeah.
couldn't know at that time, but I got to share a really special moment in Switzerland. Like,
Yeah,
excellent, excellent. You
yeah.
never know. Maybe my next plate of risotto will come with a change
I
too.
know. Exactly. And it really truly is like I know and it's funny you mentioned the Switzerland thing, which again I'm so grateful for and so proud of. It's this amazing boarding school that I was lucky enough to get invited to teach. Such a beautiful faculty, beautiful students. But I also want to say that this is not one of those jet setting books, which is like, hey, look at me on my yacht. I'm all over the planet. And
I don't think it comes
you
off
know,
braggy. I
yeah, I
don't
want
think it comes off
to
braggy.
because there are farmers markets and backyard food, and I
Yes.
mentioned in there I made Jello cups once for my boys. Like, so
Mhm.
this is if you're looking for a highfalutin fancy book on all like really expensive dishes, this is not it.
No, well, I feel like most of them
So-
are single food, you know,
oh yeah,
like they're mainly
yeah,
like an ingredient
like
of some
vanilla.
sort. Yes.
Yes.
I did have in here though that your travel definitely does inspire your work. You like to travel a
I
lot.
do, I
Do you
do.
have you've had so many amazing meals in different places. Do you have any bucket list travel destinations or foods that you would like to still try out there?
Yeah, it's so interesting because I had two before this book came out, and I was able to do one of them. I've always wanted to be at the two polar regions, so I wanted to be in the Arctic Circle, and I was
Yes. Oh,
able to
I
do that
saw
this
that.
past. Did you see that
Yes.
this
You
summer?
got to go to Greenland, right?
Yeah, and again, I have to just constantly. It's like, oh, doth protest too much, but truly, that's not my normal life. My normal life is like this morning. I was trying to prevent my little Chihuahua from digging up my garden, and it was a hot mess. Her nails were so dirty, and that's my normal. Once in a while, I get these incredible invitations, and that was one of them to go follow this film crew out to Greenland. And I tried reindeer for the first time, but also
What?
just really interesting berries. Yeah, I mean, so I
So
felt a
cool.
little guilty. My friends and I, we were all saying like, this is Rudolph, but we had
I
little
would
pieces.
not feel guilty.
Well, it was delicious. We had pieces of whale,
Oh,
from
wow.
a native fisherman. The other place I want to go, but I haven't been able to find the right place. I want it to be as environmentally sound as possible. I would love to see Antarctica, but
Oh, that's so cool.
it's a
It's
whole
so hard to get down
rigmarole.
there, though.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
I don't think, I don't know. I went to the Arctic Circle alone. I mean, with this film crew, but I don't think I can make it to Antarctica without my family, so it would have to
You
be a
need moral support
situation.
to get through the Drake
Yeah,
Passage.
I feel like that is just physically scary, and I also want it to be like I don't want to be on some cruise where I mean I want to be
Yeah,
in a place where they're good stewards of the ocean as well. So
definitely. Definitely. That's so cool. I love those last the bucket list item places, you know.
hmm.
I definitely also think that what comes to mind for me when you're like, my normal life is this. I think that we should send poets to these places so they can write
Thank
books and I
you.
can live vicariously through them. It reminds me of on what is it, Contact, where
Oh
Jodie
yeah,
Foster says they should have sent a poet. So
that's
when we go to
right.
space, I don't think you'd have
That's
to go there, but if you did.
That's right. It's so funny. I actually, it's so funny when that movie first came out. I saw it in a movie theater with my friends, and I think my sister, when she said that line, all of my friends like went like that to look at me in the movie theater. So it's so funny. Like
It's well
30
deserved. It's
years
well
later.
deserved. Yes. The I do have some questions going back to like how you write your books too, since we're
Sure.
going back to poetry.
Okay. Yeah.
One of my favorite chapters in this book was the onion chapter because
Oh,
I'm also a chronic onion crier. My husband
okay.
thinks I'm gonna like chop my hand off
Oh
cutting
no.
onions, but it is. I really love the style that you wrote that chapter. You love to play with form. Can you
Hmm.
talk a little bit about how you choose that, or do you seek it out? Do you challenge yourself?
Yeah, I don't necessarily seek it out, but when there is I remember on the onion in particular, I was reading so many interesting things about the onion, and it didn't feel like, it felt like almost impossible to get it all in one essay. And so what I wanted to do was to make it's an abecedarian, which is a poetry form, and where it becomes 26 vignettes, one vignette for every letter of the alphabet. The poetry form is like one line for each letter of the alphabet. So the first part of this essay starts with the letter A, the second one starts with the letter B, and so on and so forth. So you have 26 things. What I love about the abecedarian is that there's a beginning and an end. Like you have to end when it gets to
Right.
Z. But it's a nice way to not necessarily worry about transitions. And I think it's a playful form. There's a lot of white space on the page. So the reader gets to kind of uncover these wonders of the onion world.
Yeah.
And then make the connections like, oh, this letter is calling back to the letter J, and J seems connected to here. And for me, you don't have to do this, but for the end of an abecedarian, there should be like something unexpected, something
Ooh,
that is
okay.
almost a little more lyric. And I
Next
won't
time,
give
won't
it
you sing
away.
with me? That's
Yeah,
sort of like
yes,
that tag at the end of the alphabet.
exactly. It's almost like that, and I won't give it away, but it's just just when you think, oh, here's going to be another fact, it's not a fact. It's a personal kind of anecdote as well. So
Mhm.
yeah, I love the abecedarian in both essay and Poetry. Actually, we had all these conversations about abecedarian. I've been pronouncing it wrong all my life. It's abecedarian. You're supposed to
Yes,
say like,
I
did
looked
you
that
say?
up and I was like, I don't know how to pronounce this. I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
it's like abdicarian is how I was pronouncing it. So
I have been teaching it as abecedarian, and I was roundly corrected when I posted on social media. And so I'm just going with majority rules here.
my dad
Abecedarian.
my dad teaches biology and he can't pronounce words right. We actually have like a fake Scrabble is what we call it because
Oh,
his name is Robin. But
oh.
he's for biology, that's really bad because he'll be like
Yeah.
homoglobulus chromosomes. And we're
Oh my
like, shut
goodness.
it down.
I love it.
He's goofy. But okay. Speaking of like fun facts,
Hmm.
and historical that you sprinkle in a lot of historical stories and background on information. Like
Hmm.
in Vanilla, I really loved the story of the slave in Vanilla. I thought that was so interesting. Did these
I
stories
know.
come to you, or do you find how do you find them?
I wish I had a better answer for this, but the truth is I'm just a big nerd, and so
Love.
I read a lot more for this book than I did World of Wonders, where I kind of knew most of. I mean, both books have been quadruple fact checked, but World of Wonders was really kind of there's no index there because I didn't really need one. I wanted to make sure I got measurements right. For Bite Bite Bite, I was definitely reading a lot more. And while there's no official index, I included a list of books that I was reading alongside this project. And I wasn't searching for
Yeah,
it
they're
all.
in the
But
back.
yeah, yeah. And so I was not searching for an interesting story about vanilla. Like I said, this vanilla was one of those that I came up with a scene. I know I wanted to write about boyhood or just having what it means to have a little boy who still kind of wants to hang out with you willingly. My children still do, but they all have like activities and theater crew and sports and all kinds of things. But this was a quiet moment during a blizzard where my son and I were making Christmas gifts together, and I knew that's what I wanted to tackle, but I didn't know what exactly about vanilla I wanted to connect it to. And I did not know this ahead of time. So, what I love about this book is that hopefully you can almost feel the sense of discovery when I have that sense of discovery. I wanted vanilla to be about boyhood, and then boom, I never knew that vanilla was propagated by an enslaved child when many, many botanists tried to do it and failed. Here, an enslaved child learned how to do it. And more miraculously, he got credit for it.
I thought that that was incredible.
Right? Like,
Yes.
usually you can imagine this terrible story of someone stealing his work and taking
Right.
credit. But it was really, I'm not saying this guy, after all, did own people.
Right.
But I will say at least one positive thing he did is he made it sure in his will and everything, like to make sure that um, this enslaved boy got credit for when other scientists were trying to take credit. He was like, he actually wrote, I thought it was a really funny line, and I'm going to butcher it, but it was like, the gist of it was like, Mr. So and so must be delusional or ill because he did not discover this,
Right.
So for the time, actually for 2024, who are we kidding? That's extraordinary.
Mhm.
To let a young black boy get credit for something like that, and to admit he taught you something. So
Mhm.
I couldn't write about winter and making these gifts with my son without including that story as well. So I definitely didn't want to sugarcoat anything. um, you know, this country, this world has a horrible, horrifying history of sugar production. I wanted to include that, but that's
Yes.
not the focus of my book. It's also not a history book necessarily. I wanted to talk about the kind of the Christmas Eve tradition that my family had, and yet I also just couldn't ignore it. So,
No, I think
yeah.
that it's really interesting how you weave those in. That
Oh, thank
it's
you.
never like I think it's containing multitudes for things, right? That you can
Yeah.
have a great memory of eating sugar cane with your family for Christmas
Mm-hmm.
and how special that is and the how it ties back to Christmases of past and that
Mm-hmm.
you can't recreate that you're in a new place, you're in a new town, but then in Memphis, there magically is sugarcane.
Yeah, yeah.
But then I feel like you always weave in, it's that it's present in the room as well. It's
Yeah.
not sugarcoating it. It's making sure that maybe the wholeness of the thing is in the room. I
Yeah,
don't
oh,
know
I
if that
love
makes
that
sense.
idea. No, absolutely, that makes total sense, and also, I mean, I think that's so astute, and I also think, um, you know, I'm a professor by my occupation. I did not
Mhm.
want to sit out and lecture anybody in this book. With this and World of Wonders,
Right.
I was imagining my children reading this. So obviously, when I revise, I can't just focus just on my children, but I still, for both books, I pictured talking to a friend. And so, I wouldn't
Okay.
lecture or wag my finger or point my finger at friends. So I try not to do that in these books too. And hopefully
Right.
the reader feels that way, like what you mentioned, that it's not
Mhm.
a giant lecture or any sort of guilt trip necessarily, but it's more like, hey, I just want to be real with you. This is what happened.
I feel
And
that way.
also, yeah.
Yes. I feel that way about the waffles chapter as well,
Oh,
that, like,
yes.
waffles is you, you're waking up to such sad news from the day before, and,
Hmm.
what can I do? What can I do? You can make waffles and just be present with your family, but the sadness, the heaviness is still there.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
we can be present in this moment for each other and love each other here. I feel like that specifically is just such a balm of what is needed to be reminded for
Oh,
so many
yeah.
people carrying around so much weight with pick a topic, pick a
Yeah,
topic.
exactly.
So,
So much. And it,
yeah.
again, most of it started in the pandemic, but like it's like you said, like just open up the
Yeah.
newspaper, just
Yeah.
turn on the news and it is overwhelming. So those stories for sure are important. This is not at all anything
No.
to ignore it by any means. But again, I'm looking for ways that we can remember what it's like to help each other and also to celebrate each other while we're here on this planet.
And be present together.
Yeah.
That and understanding seasonality of things, and understanding that this will pass, things will pass. You'll have the memory of how hard it was when it
Yeah.
was here, and that we were kind to each other during that time.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
It just really hits really good. I think that I had another one that hit me really good. What was it? The jackfruit chapter, tears. I
Oh.
cannot read it on this camera. I will be
Oh my
like
goodness.
crying so hard. But no, the whole conversation about you can't bring up something to your dad directly. Sorry, for the people in the podcast, I'm having a conversation directly to Aimee. You guys are being left out. No, in the jackfruit chapter, she's talking about being 8 years old, eating jackfruit for the first time, and then she eats it again with her dad later. She has it with her granddad the first time, and then with her dad later, but can't bring up in the room, that I'm remembering my granddad. He's here right now. Like,
Oh, yeah,
it got
yeah.
me really hard.
Mm.
It's so good.
Is your grandfather still around?
No, he just recently passed, and that was why it
Oh.
was so good. I feel
Mm.
that way for tomatoes. So,
Mm.
just so
Mhm. Yeah,
perfect.
yeah.
I put out 12 tomato plants for him this year. So,
Oh, that is what a sweet, lovely tribute. Like, I just love that. And, I mean, Randy, you're like my ideal reader, like in terms of
thank you.
our backgrounds are so very different, but I wanted to show
Yes.
like you don't have to have the same experiences, but it makes you hopefully just like pause and take stock of your own life and to appreciate
Yes.
what you have, but also to appreciate what you lost too. Like, what a
And that
gift. Yeah, what a
yeah,
gift to know that your grandfather is probably like smiling watching you plant potatoes or tomatoes.
tomatoes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
And it's also with jobs, careers, with friends that have left. Like, I think I read World of Wonders when I was in between jobs.
Mm,
I was leaving being a park ranger, which
okay.
is like the ultimate outdoors job,
Yes.
and going to be chained to a desk, but
Mm,
for a lot of reasons that I needed to do professionally, as one
mhm.
does. So, I was kind of having this existential crisis of, I'm leaving this part of my identity behind. I'm leaving behind my dream job. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, but like dreams are all encompassing. It's my dream job now too,
Yeah, yeah.
And I think that World of Wonders was such a great reminder that I could enjoy the outdoors and didn't have to do it for my job. I could just enjoy the outdoors and
Absolutely.
know and appreciate and learn different animals and plants and see how they followed me throughout my whole life. And I feel the same way about Bite by Bite, that like,
Oh, thank you.
memories of meals around tables, different cities that I've lived in, and I'm in another liminal space professionally, so it came
Mm,
across at a great time. You'll
yeah,
keep
yeah.
releasing books, and I'll keep getting different jobs. But
Good, good.
no, I think that memories with family, memories with so many different things, it all happens around a table
Yeah,
or
yeah.
picnic tables, even.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So I really loved. I think the jackfruit chapter is my favorite chapter,
Oh,
but I have
right.
a lot of very high ranked chapters.
Oh,
So.
thank you, thank you. That's high praise from you. Great.
Do you have a personal favorite in the book, or it had to be like choosing a favorite child? I
I
feel
know
like.
it's really, on any given week there could be a whole different table of contents. But that's kind of, I don't look at that as a hindrance. I think of that as like, oh my gosh, what a incredible world. I mean, I could have made this all desserts. I could
Genuinely.
have made this all vegetables. I could have made this all like fried foods, or all desserts. I didn't want to do that because I've seen that done before. And I really
Mm-hmm.
wanted to showcase like both, like a fancy risotto and then again Jello. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't spend much time on Jello, but the fact that it's even in a food book, and then maybe there's something like rambutan that maybe the average person in the States hasn't had or isn't available at Kroger often,
Right.
if ever. And so I think what I would say to that is I don't necessarily have a favorite because these aren't my favorite necessarily, but I would say fun to write. I think any of
Mm-hmm.
the Abecedarians were fun,
Yes.
because again, you have to play around with that tension. Like, I only have 26 moments here. Which 26 moments am I going to include? And then also, can I make them fit the alphabet? So
Right.
it's like a fun puzzle, brain puzzle. But the most fun was not necessarily one of the essays, although revising, I always love that. Oh, I think I learned the most from the books that I read on shave ice.
I
We have
loved that.
yeah,
Yes.
it's just like I know people have had snow cones. A lot of people have had snow cones, but the shave ice without the D is what I had in Hawaii, and it was just so interesting to read the origins of that was considered like kind of rebellious to have when ice first came about. I mean, it was just
Yes.
so I really had the most knowledge of that, meaning that's what I had the most knowledge to start. So I did the most like maybe research and reading about ice, which is a great. This was like last summer. That's one of the greatest assignments to have. Like learn what you can about ice. When it's like 85 degrees and 85% humidity. But the most fun I had overall was I wanted to include the food writing prompts at the end of the book. I
I was
know,
hoping you were going to bring that up.
oh, good, good,
Yay.
good. I know most food books don't have that, but that was born out of very specifically my experience with World of Wonders. Like,
Yes.
Randy, I can't tell you how many times, either in person or in virtual spaces or Zooms, where I encountered someone. I just taught a class in San Antonio last week
Mm-hmm.
where there was two young mothers and they were like kind of their voices were cracking a little bit and they were like, Aimee, I don't even know what to do anymore. I don't know who I am. I used to be creative. I used to write. I don't even know where to start. So I get that from young mothers. I get that from 10-year-olds writing me emails and
I've
letters. And
I've
how
seen
in 95. Yeah.
Yes, I've seen some of the like books that teachers have put together of like their whole
Yes.
class doing a World of Wonders book. And
Yeah.
then if I had a souvenir like that from third grade on all the fruits that we brought, like
Oh
that would
my
have been
gosh.
invaluable.
Yeah,
But
right. Just to remember your classmates and what they
yes,
grew.
I
Like,
can't imagine being an author and seeing what type of cultural impact in real time something I made had on society and like people's mental health and like appreciation of nature. What an accomplishment.
Oh my gosh.
I honestly, I read all of the prompts in the back, and I actually wanted to ask you a few of them on the spot.
Great. Good.
I have one ready to go. What is your last meal? Like
oh my gosh,
your perfect last meal.
You asked me the most macabre one of them all, you know. And by the way, for those listening, these are designed from, you know, ages 8 to 98. And actually even more than that,
I would have so much fun with them.
You know? And these are designed for poems, for essays. You don't have to show them to anybody. You could just keep them in your journal. There's just so many people who are, you know, businessmen in their suit and tie who like secretly, it's almost like a secret, like, I used to write, but I don't know where to begin. You know, like, you know, they don't have time to take a college class with me. They can't do Zoom. They don't have time, you know, like that. Just start small is what I always say in my classes. Start small, start with like little moments and see what happens. Just all you need is a notebook. All you need is a, you know, a spiral notebook. But for that last meal, oh my goodness. You know, it's less on the food. I don't even know if I could even say it because I'll start crying myself. It's less on the food, but more who I want to have around that table.
Oh, I love that though.
And I think I would be sad if I was like, if my last meal was like, I don't know, cereal, like a thing of oatmeal standing up when I'm rushing off to work. I'll be sad if that's the case.
No,
so
yeah.
It's less, and I don't, you know, I'd be sad if it was any meal and I was alone. So it's less of the meal, but more of the people around me. Like in a dream world, it would be not only the family I made, but my, you know, my parents. And I know that can't always happen. And, yeah, so here's where the tears come. So it's more of like, I hope that it's, and I'm not a big alcohol drinker, but I love a good fruit. So I hope that there's like a bowl of like whatever it is, the most juicy fruits possible to finish us off. For like, I know some people don't think of it as a dessert, but if it's ice cold and sweet, I mean, hard to
beat.
Yes. Yeah. So I didn't answer your question, but somewhat anyway. Yeah,
partially.
Yeah.
No, I think that Claire Saffit's dessert person then is your book, your dessert book of choice if you needed a cookbook recommendation.
Oh, good, like, good. How do you spell the last name?
Saffitz, Saffitz.
Oh, okay.
Z, I think Saffitz or S Saffitz.
Okay, I will look it up.
She is my personal fave. She has 2 books, What's for Dessert and Dessert Person. But Dessert Person, she agrees with you that fruit is actually a dessert.
Oh, okay.
And most of her recipes have fruit in them. But that's a really it's a good challenging learn how to actually bake book.
Yeah. Oh, neat. Yeah. Oh, good. I wrote that down. I'll have to check that out.
Yes, she's excellent. But I had to think of this yesterday. It wasn't in relation to me asking you this question, but I won my master's fantasy runoff, and they always have a master's dinner. So now I will be hosting the master's dinner next year because I won the master's
for my
spring group. Amazing. So my master's menu is sort of similar to my last meal, and I think it's going to be like 4 different shrimp, 4 different ways.
Oh my gosh!
You know, a cold crispy Diet Coke on ice with a straw, French fries.
I love it.
Yes,
that sounds so great.
I feel like so many people will have so much fun with these writing prompts because I definitely did, making my fake master's menu that flows well into that.
Excellent. A crispy soft drink is key too. Yeah,
so good with you have to have a wide set straw, preferably like metal.
Yes. Oh, so good.
Yeah. These are so good. You know, write about your favorite guilty pleasure food. You've got try to grow a herb and be very descriptive of how it's growing. I love it so much. The other thing that I love a lot about this book, it's the artistry that goes into this amazing cover, and every intro chapter is the same artist as World of Wonders.
That's right.
And I love all of the art in World of Wonders as well. But I was wondering, for for Bite by Bite, it's a little bit different than World of Wonders. You can't really change the way that an animal looks, but these foods are very directly tied to your memory.
Yeah.
Did you have some creative control over how these pictures look, or is she just that good?
She's really just that good. I mean, like she absolutely. First of all, I just need to mention her name is the illustrator's name is Fumi Nakamura. And when Echo allowed me to have each essay illustrated, and I was very adamant about illustrations because I think anybody can have the glossy, digital photo, with a food stylist to make it look extra shiny or whatever, I don't know if you've seen those videos of how they make food.
So
it's
good.
almost like
They're
fake.
Crazy good, though. They're like very overdone.
Exactly. Like the milk would be frothing by blowing bubbles in it or something, and I didn't want that. Again, no judgment on people who do that. That just wasn't my style. And what I loved about Fumi's illustrations is that it kind of touches back onto the kind of reader I was as a kid, where I would look at illustrations because in the 70s we did not have, larger than life photographs, glossy photographs. And there was something about like staring at each pencil stroke or like each shadow, and they're all like from a different viewpoint, you know what I mean? Like, so you have something like the Filipino dessert, halo halo. It looks like it's moving. It just, they look so dynamic. Bananas are just portrayed in such a cheerful, like happy way. I want all of these things on a t-shirt or something.
Or like if you sold some merch, I'd be purchasing a tote bag with all of them.
Exactly. I got to talk to Fumi about this. But yeah, and so I just really wanted to invite that, like, that one, that they would make you hungry, and two, they would make you curious about, like, oh, what are tomatoes that look like this? I want to read this chapter, that kind of thing.
I love them. I think they're so pretty, and just really tie the whole book back together. I think, I especially for this Bite by Bite, I didn't know some of the fruits, so I needed the illustrations to help me. Mangosteens.
Mangosteens, yes. And that's
I'd never
the joy is seeing things that you haven't seen, but also things that you have seen, but just in a different light. Like
definitely crawfish.
Yeah,
never seen just one. I've only ever seen 3,500.
Exactly. I just wanted the physical object to be so beautiful. Look at this, like, light butter yellow
just so
page.
Good.
And anyway, and then I just love that there's sugarcane, bangos, which is a fish, mint and saba bananas and an apple all in one. Like, you never get that pairing or that grouping together.
This was a very very eclectic but very you grouping. I don't even know you that well, but I feel like I do, having read your work.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. You're like the fourth person in the last week to say the table of contents is so you. So I don't know what that means, because to me the table of contents looks like just a hodgepodge, but it does make me happy that people who haven't known me very long, but know my work deeply, say that I would not expect anything less from you. Like, it would be weird if this was all cakes or all, all fish or, that kind of thing, and nothing else.
Even though, speaking of cakes, you have dabbled in some pretty impressive work.
Yes, absolutely. I absolutely love making them. I just feel like I'm eating sand or something. And I know they're not bad because people come back for more and more and more. It's just not sand. I guess I would say, like, the texture doesn't excite me.
Cake is not my strong suit either.
Yeah, I mean, I love dessert. I love tiramisu. I just think cake by itself, there's just so many more interesting things, out there.
And it's so much to have to put together too, but I do appreciate your commitment to the birthday cake celebration. It is.
Yeah, I think I made it to 13 before I ever outsourced the cake. I'm very proud.
That's really impressive.
Both boys' birthday cakes all the way until 13, and then after that, I was like, okay, I'm going to pay good money to an excellent bakery to make this happen. So
yeah. I ended up having the same person make my like 18th birthday that made my 3rd birthday cake, and they recreated it. So
wow,
small
that's so
town, you
great.
can do that, you know,
Yeah.
very cute. She remembered what it looked like. But I wanted to end on you had such a poignant last paragraph in this book, and I love it so much. Speaking of all of the baking that you do that I've attempted at doing, but it's funny how we beat ourselves up trying to get a perfect recipe, a perfect dessert, a perfect party in the books. There's so much that goes into making a meal that will be forgotten in mere weeks. Not everyone will remember the place settings, the sprig of coral and lavender zinnias, the plump raspberry garnish in your drink, but that's not the point when it comes to loved ones. You heat up the waffle iron, you shave the ice, you rescue the egg yolks. You have to. You make something new with what you have. You take the extra bit of time. It doesn't always turn out how you think it should. You make it anyway. And I love that so much. I think that anytime I've ever made something for someone, that is what I'm trying to do. I
it's
can't
such a
achieve
good
perfection.
feeling. Exactly. It's just, and when anybody has ever made anything for me, I feel so loved and so like gobsmacked that they took time out of all the 5 million things they could do with their day, that they took time to make something. So yeah, I definitely just wanted to call us back to that again, that slowing down of there's definitely times for takeout and there's definitely times for making things, and I appreciate both of them so much. And I just appreciate you being able to read so beautifully and just be this ideal reader for my work. I just feel so lucky to have you in our state.
Hopefully, we're going to have a whole lot more ideal readers reading this.
Yes.
After you come to visit, you can pre-order the book at the bookstore now, or come by and grab it on April 30th. But I want to thank you so much for your vulnerability, love for life, your love for your family and friends really shines through. And I thank you so much for sharing and taking your time today. It was awesome.
Thank you, Randy. It was such a pleasure. I can't wait to see Friendly City Books in person. And just thank you so much for giving me the space here.